I on? Okay, great. Hello, come on in. All right, thank you so much for being here. And for folks online, thank you for being there and here. For those who don't know me, my name is Dr. Chantel Marshall. Students call me Dr. M. I am a professor of psychology and the current department chair for psychology and counseling. And way back, before any of those titles, I was an undergraduate student at UCLA in my last year before graduating. And I was tapped by someone in a program I was in. I was in an academic advancement program. And broadly speaking, it was a program for students who were at risk for not finishing college. I had a number of identities that fit into that. The most pertinent one was being a first-generation college student, so the first in my family to go to college, and also being a low-income student, so relied very much on Pell Grants and scholarships to get me through. And so in that program, I was tapped because I had been a McNair. And UCLA had just been approved to have its own McNair program. And they were like, you've been through it, come help us. And I said, okay. And they said, you get a director. And I said, great. And so I met, not yet Dr. LaTanya Rease Miles, who was a graduate student in the English department at the time. And I remember sort of dusting off the cobwebs of this little corner room that we got in the building, and we were given a lot of free rein in terms of like how we were going to approach having McNair at UCLA. And for those of you who don't know McNair, it is a program to diversify the professoriate, specifically in STEM, although it's sort of wavered in what kinds of degrees you can have for students of color, for first-generation students, for low-income students. And so in that time, I learned that you can have a mentor who is also a very good friend. And we built it, and one of the amazing things that happened is that working with LT, as she goes by, taught me that you don't have to go with just what is in front of you. So she took the McNair program and used that as a model to reach out to create programs for students in the humanities, for freshman students, for all kinds of other students. She just built them out of seemingly thin air. And and it was a great time. And LT was one of the people, I don't know if I've told you this, who said, you know that you can like get paid to be a nerd? You should go to graduate school. And I was like, excuse me? And so we also ran a graduate mentor program where we brought graduate students in to mentor undergrads. And I mean, I got front row seats to all of the mentoring I could possibly have to get into grad school. So that is my origin story of knowing LT, but her story goes up from there. So she was the McNair coordinator or director at UCLA and established not just McNair, but a lot of first-gen programming, and then went on to Loyola Marymount University to establish first-gen programming there as well. And is it LMU that has a library exhibit? Yes. So there is a library, special collection at the LMU library about that program and featuring LT as well. So she breathes and lives and dreams first-gen. And so it's been really great to have her in my life, especially as I came to Nevada State, became a faculty member, very much because we serve a lot of first-generation college students. Not only did, LT doesn't stop, she's like, we can go bigger. She created thousands and thousands of people group on Facebook, specifically for first-generation thoughts. And so it includes folks who were first-generation college students, who work in first-generation college programming, and at some point, first-generation students started to trickle in who were like asking questions. They were like, I'm a first-gen student, how do I apply for financial aid? It was an amazing experience to be on the other side on my computer being able to help a student who knows where, right? And so from there, we got Catalyst Awards, which are awards given for media representations of first-gen experiences. And eventually someone was like, you should write a book. And the book doesn't even, like, it ends right before we meet. And so and I was like, but to get the details of everything that led up to that moment when we met in that hallway was just an amazing experience for me, because I know like a lot of the things that happened right after that moment. And so, man, it was just awesome to get the backstory. And so I'm very excited to have my very good friend, my I Want to Be You When I Grow Up mentor, here to talk about the story in the book, the process of the book, and all things first gen, because I'm going to ask a lot of questions about that. So the way that we're going to have the next hour or so is to have LT present a little bit, some slides, just to get us all on the same page, some context, and then we will switch to Q&A. I have a few questions, and then we're going to open it up to the audience for questions. So, yes. Oh, I'm sorry. And we'll have a reading of the book. So slides, reading, questions, and then questions. So please help me in welcoming LaTanya Rease Miles.
Thank you so much, Dr. Chantel Marshall. She didn't mention she was this big when I met her, and it has just been so pleasurable for me to watch her grow just and deepen as a thinker and a thought leader. And like we've been partners right from the beginning. And it is true that the book does end right before, so she will be in the sequel, okay? She will be in the sequel. Actually, I'm excited to be back on this campus. I was here when it was Nevada State College, just one of my favorite places to be. I really just love the vibes here. So thank you for having me. Like Chantel mentioned, I'm going to just provide a little bit more context for you, and I'll talk a bit about the excerpt that I'm going to read from. But first, let me start with a spoiler, okay? As you read this, the spoiler is I do graduate from college, okay? Although when you read the book, it's going to feel at times like I don't, and you're going to wonder, how do I do it? And in fact, not only do I graduate from college, I do go on to earn a doctorate. And one of the things that many of us know is that it's definitely your family that will keep you humble. So the context for this is not long after I completed my doctorate, and I was living on a college campus. Chantel would come hang out with me. Living on a college campus, actually, as faculty and residents at UCLA. So my husband and I, both first-generation college graduates, and these two little knuckleheads here, my son and my daughter, literally grew up on a college campus. What a difference a generation makes, right? So a lot of this is about legacy. My grandmother came to visit. I'm from the East Coast originally. My grandma came to visit, and there was a placard, with my name on it. It had Dr. LaTanya Rease Miles. My grandma was having this moment, right? And then my son said this, like, psh, not a real doctor, right? Way to keep you humble. But we're gonna keep it. But look at this, though. Exactly. So I was the first in my immediate family to go to college and graduate with a 4-year degree. My son is only one of, and then other folks did go on, but my son was, I think we counted one of two in our family, not just the extent of black men to go on to college. So here he is. I'm at his college graduation. I also just want to give you a little bit more about my background. Not only was I a first working class, first gen student, I was a multi-time transfer student as well. But I earned my degree from University of Maryland and my PhD in literature from UCLA. I thought my whole life I was going to work on a college campus and be a faculty member. And I chose a different path. I chose the path of administration. Chantel mentioned some of the programs that I built. Not all of them were first gen, and not all of them like when I went to LMU, I wasn't tapped to create first gen programs, but so I did. But if you were to go to LinkedIn, you would see these types of things. I think it's important to see these things along the bottom, right? Kind of provide more context for who I am and many of the things that I love. Smart Girl is a lot about the things that I love. And it's important because often the narratives about the first gen experience is about struggle and strife and not enough about joy and the things that our families do know, right, and do give us. So you'll see here, I love sports, especially basketball, love Prince, but at my core, I was just like like Chantel said, just a nerd that loves to read. So the person that said to me I should write a book was actually my daughter. And she has said that for much of her life, right, which was like, Mom, you've done all these things. Why don't you tell your story? And I'm a mother, so I said, girl, no. I really thought of myself as like championing other people and always encouraging others to tell their story. I really didn't, truly, I'm telling you honestly, I did not really have plans to write my own narrative. It wasn't until I met another woman of color who also identified as first gen. I was interviewing her about her story, and she said to me, LaTanya, you should tell the story that you needed while you were making your way through college. And that shifted things for me. I was like, okay, I can do that. I could tell the story that I needed. And thus we have Smart Girl. One of the things I'll say is that I had attended 9 different schools by 10th grade. Let that sit with you for a second. 9 schools by 10th grade. I know now, 'cause, your life is just your life. You're often not just reflecting about your life. I know now the red flags that sends, that you're not likely to even graduate from high school by attending that many different schools, much less go on to college or go on to earn a PhD. But despite all that, as I started to put this book together, I was like, okay, I'm going to tell the story of how I, as a first gen, made it, right? And my first gen origin story. And then I was thinking, my family actually didn't talk to me about going to college. I had this epiphany. What happened was they told me, you are smart. And then the question became, well, how does a smart girl get to college? So that's where the title of this book comes from. So we want to thank Zoe for encouraging me to do that. And in my family, aside from my mom, I'm known as T-E-E. My mom's name is Gloria, so she's G and I'm T. So you see a little T over there. Product of military. My mom was a single parent. She entered the military in order to take care of both of us. And that's me in El Paso, Texas, there in kindergarten. And there's my family in Northern Virginia. Just a regular old family, y'all. You know what I mean? We'll shout out Mom. Right there. Who is the second person in the family to get a college degree. So we can clap for that. And like I said, my family poured so much into me. These stories often don't get told, right? But it was like, you're the smart one, T. You're going to do big things. And there's a name for that. I was the golden child. I recognize that that is a certain role. Not everyone has played that role, but I definitely was the go-to person in my family. In this case, it was for my siblings. I am my mother's only child, but my siblings are pretty much, and most of them are boys, or just like my brothers, you know. So some of you may relate to this. I was the person that answered the phone for certain things, that made phone calls, answered certain mail, and I don't come from an immigrant background. English is our primary language. Anybody have that experience? That's called a cultural broker, right? So I was a cultural broker in my family. So they hyped me up, and then I went to college. Man, all of a sudden, I'm noticing that people know some things that I don't know. And that actually was a shift because, like I said, I was used to being the go-to person. I was a person, if someone couldn't figure it out, like, oh, just ask T, right? Now I'm in this new space, and I feel like I'm confused that people know things that I don't know. I know now that that is called culture shock, but I didn't know it then. And I also didn't know that I was first gen. Is Generation X here? Any Gen Xers here? We're not boomers. We're not millennials. Yeah, us. We get forgotten. That one. Yeah. This is very much a Gen X story too, because especially I was in college in the late '80s and early '90s. People weren't really saying first gen. They were saying URM, underrepresented, minority, you know, that kind of thing. There was no T-shirts. That came about later. But then once I learned I was this thing called First Gen, and I had completed my doctorate, I was actually running the McNair program when I learned that I was First Gen. I was like, hold up, that's me. And that was a turning point for me in terms of once I had this awareness, I just felt like I had my life's calling, and that it was really important for me to reach out to other folks who may share that identity. So let me, by special request, I have not read from this chapter ever, but I love Dr. Marshall. So I am going to here. Let me get 2 chains off of here. Oh no, hold on. There we go. All right. So this is it's from the middle of the book, and I'm trying to do this without being spoilery, but you like this one though. What's different about this chapter? So it's not the funny thing is not representative of the rest of the book. So just you need to know that it's told in a series of vignettes. So it's told in a series of short stories, like think of it as like flashes of memories. At the time, I'm at Howard University, trying to, finish up school. But I experienced a situation that unfortunately many students experience. I will also say one more thing. I'm a very, very proud English major, very proud to be in the humanities. And this chapter is called Long Division. And it is meant to show some mastery with numbers and computation. So I'm not going to read the whole thing, but as you listen, perk your ears, be attentive to the language of math and numbers, okay, because it's really important. I'm going to tell you now, it ends on a cliffhanger. Don't be mad. Don't be mad, okay? I'm not telling you the whole story. It's going to start in media res, all right, in the middle of things, and I'm not going to tell you what happens. Chantel may ask a question, though. All right, you ready, though? You ready? All that build up. Okay. What school am I attending at this time? Do you remember? Howard University. All right. You cannot apply current financial aid to a past balance. This logic made 0 sense to me. Thanks to my high grade point average, I earned an academic scholarship that covered my expenses for the current year. The issue was the lingering housing balance from the year prior, which loomed over my head like a nimbostratus cloud. My Howard bestie, Lelania, encouraged me to speak with Dean Alvin Thornton, her constitutional law professor, who I had seen often in the hallways of Douglas Hall. We didn't exactly know what a dean was, but we knew his title meant that he might be able to I can go, oh, here we go, we're back. Within the privacy of his office, I explained the problem to Dr. Thornton. He wanted to help and graciously offered to award me an additional scholarship to cover the balance. But when I gave this fantastic news to the person behind the counter at the administration building, I was told the same thing repeatedly, sometimes quickly and sometimes slowly, as though English was not my first language. You cannot apply current financial aid to a past balance. Some people feeling seen and heard, and all right, so there might be some trauma being worked out right here. The additional scholarship would change nothing. I reported this obtuse information to Dr. Thornton, a working class country boy who was raised in Roanoke, Alabama, who attended segregated public schools in Randolph County, who earned his undergraduate degree from Morehouse College and was inspired by then President Dr. Benjamin E. Mays, who earned a PhD in political science from Howard University, who worked as a legislative aide to Congressman John Conyers Jr., who would go on to become Associate Provost at Howard and chair of the Prince George's County Public Schools Board of Education, and who could not figure this out either. I knew something didn't add up as soon as Lelania and I approached the door to my room at the end of the hallway in Meridian Hall. Everyone agreed I can switch to another mic. Okay. All right. Everyone agreed that I had the best setup in the building. My assigned roommate never showed up, and I had a room all to myself, but was charged for a double and not a single, which made the cost even lower. I shared a suite that was meant for four people total with only one other person, D'Angela. It was a corner room with a view of 16th Street and Adams Morgan neighborhood just beyond to the west. As I stood in front of the door, my eyes zeroed in on a small metal gadget that was inside the keyhole. My dorm key could not fit inside of it. Nevertheless, I kept trying to insert it, hoping for a different result. I didn't even see the paper notice on the door at first. I could hear Lelania saying something to me, although it sounded from miles away. Her voice was getting shaky and rising higher, that much I could tell. All I could compute at that moment was, my stuff is in there. How was I supposed to get everything out? I've never read this before, sorry. How was I supposed to get everything out and find a new place to live within 24 hours? When I was in elementary school in Columbia, South Carolina, I was obsessed with playing pinball. It helped, of course, that my teen idol, Brooke Shields, Gen X representing, starred in a movie as a young pinball-playing genius. But the game itself fascinated me, how even though you could pull the plunger with the same amount of tension and push the flipper buttons with the same amount of effort, and how the ball, governed by the rules of gravity, may follow the same path along the course, you never know where the ball will end up. Things may start off well enough, and you can shift or tilt the machine with your hip, and you may have confidence as that shiny metal ball bounces feverishly between bumpers while the points rack up, that this will be a long game. But then suddenly, inexplicably, the ball rolls right between the flippers without warning. The point at which stability moves to instability, that is chaos theory. A Meridian Hill staff member opened my dorm room long enough for me to gather as much of my belongings as I could in trash bags and crates. My Prince albums and posters, all of my paperbacks, stuffed animals that Rob had given me as Valentine's Day presents, the slam tombstone that I gripped during the death march, which was only 2 months ago, but seemed like 2 years had passed. Some things I took over to Lelania's, some Rob drove to Mom's house in Maryland, and some I gave to my sweet mate D'Angela to thank her for the good memories. I dared not say anything to my family back in Alexandria. After all, I was the golden child, the one who was supposed to make it, the one whom everyone else pinned their hopes on. If I couldn't get through school, who could? At this time, I was helping my cousin Monique, another smart girl, make her way through T.C. Williams High School and on to college. I took her on college visits, made sure that she was enrolled in the right classes, and confirmed that Mrs. Barnwell was her guidance counselor. I was the big cousin, the almost sister, and it was my job to make sure that she and all of the others were okay. How was I supposed to look her in the eye and tell her that I couldn't even do it? Although I appreciated Lelania's offer, I only crashed at her place for a few nights. She already had several roommates, and I didn't want to bother anyone or impose on them during this time of the year or ever. I also couldn't return to my home in Maryland because I didn't have a way to campus, and final exams were 2 weeks away. Let me say that again, 2 weeks away. Thanks to a tip I heard from another student, I rented a cheap temporary room at an older alum's house in LaDroit Park near the south end of campus. There were other students staying there, but I barely saw them. We just nodded at one another if we happened to see each other in the hallway or on the stairs. It was just a place for me to lay my head with enough space for me to have some clothes and a few books. I just needed to write the paper for Dr. Adams's class and finish the semester. I earned nearly a 4.0 that term. I'm going to stop there. You ready? As you're crying.
We are taking this mic with us. I'll use this one.
I don't think this one's on.
He has left. It had been muted. Oh.
Can you hear me? Okay. I don't think this one's on.
We'll share.
Okay.
All right, that was. I apologize a little bit for asking for that passage.
Sorry.
That was the one I remember. I remember reading it and just, whew, you know.
I do.
So thank you. You do graduate from college. I can attest to that. Thank you so much for reading that passage based on my own request. One of the first questions I was going to ask you, but you've already answered it partially, was when you realized you were first gen, because I remembered that it was not something you had when you were a student, when you were an undergrad. And so you said it was when you were serving first generation college students. But I'm wondering what that did, like when you got that label and you turned around and looked back, right, at all of the things that had happened, did it change how you understood what you had gone through?
Yeah, for sure. So here's the thing. I knew my experience was different than other people's, but I didn't know what to attribute it to as I was going through it. So initially, I thought it was race, which is why I went to Howard University. I thought, let me go to a black school, right? But, I mean, as you heard, this is why it's so important to have that chapter there. What I went through, right? This is a school dedicated to upward mobility of Black folks, and you saw what happened to me. So even though I didn't have language for it, I knew something was up. When I heard about this identity and I look back, it's like that moment in the movie where you're like, oh my God, right, explains everything. It just not only gave me a way of sort of understanding my experience, it also gave me a community, right? And that's the beauty of it. Oh, I could find other people. If I say this thing, we can find one another. And I don't have to, like, race was a problem, but it wasn't the only issue, right? So being Black, working class, and first gen, all those things, and food insecure, all these things sort of like coalesce. And I was like, oh, now I know I can ask for things. Now I know it's not just me and my crazy family. Other people are going through this thing too. So it moves from just being like this individualized experience to it's an institutional problem that needs to be addressed. That's how I think of it.
So I have so many questions. They're all competing for what to ask next, and I'm trying to figure out which direction to go. But I'm curious. So when you were reading, I was thinking, why did I love this passage so much? I was trying to reflect, and I think it's because for first generation college students, there is this like motivation to go back to your younger self and say like, it's gonna be okay, right? Because there were moments that were really hard. And my moment, similar to yours of how do I go back and say I couldn't do it, was in grad school. So I went to Stanford University. It is a private, elite institution. My dad is a construction worker. My mom is a hairdresser. I am in a space that I feel very out of place in. And that first quarter, because we're on the quarter system, I thought about packing up my little car and just driving home, like the 6-hour or 8-hour drive, just okay, oh, there it goes. And then I kept thinking of my nieces and nephews, and like, how do I tell them that I couldn't do it? And then I just go back to studying for class or writing my paper or whatever it was. So I'm curious how that sort of looking back, if you have it, and thinking what I wish I'd had, how has that helped you create programming, create experiences for the new generation of first generation college students?
Yeah, well, I mean, that is the purpose of the book. It purposely ends before I talk about the programs that I created, because I honestly wanted to give people insight into why I created those programs, like what is actually driving me. I went on to become a dean, and remind me to say more about that in a second. But in the role of a dean, created programs for food insecure students. But I wanted people to know partly it was because I was hungry as a student, right? And what that felt like, and how your day revolves around trying to figure out food. How do you study when you're trying to figure out eating? That's a whole thing. So that was the kind of the point. One of the reasons why I wrote the book was to give like the personal account of this. And the one thing I'll say about the being evicted and for a bill, I made a promise to myself, if I was ever in that situation, as an administrator, what I would or would not do. Like now I know as an administrator that things can happen to support students. You don't have to jump to evicting a student. And I said a 4.0, I had a 379. I was an honor student as well. I don't think that only honor students deserve those things, but I do want you to understand, like, despite all that, I was an honor student, and then yeah, I won't. If I say more, it'll be spoilery. So yeah.
So I was wondering if part of the experience you had, so I was sharing with you, and I'll share with all of you, that I was chatting with some students in class yesterday, and related to the topic was explaining how I am a success story, right? I'm a first generation college graduate success story. But that's not all positive, right? Like there are some, it's hard. It's hard to then figure out, was I special? Was I lucky? Was it just hard work? Can anyone do it as long as they work as hard as I did? And I've come to the conclusion that I was very lucky, in part meeting you, right? Because then you taught me about, like, I went into a PhD program more prepared than 99% of first gen college students. And even then, I almost left. But one of the students asked me, like, do you ever feel guilty because of the family that you left behind, or who didn't do the same as you did? And I said, yes, I did. And I'm wondering how you felt, if you felt any of that, and how you've processed that, if you have. I'm just wondering, for my own sake, how do we sit with that?
Yeah. You and I have a friend, Rebecca Covarrubias, who writes about this academic achievement guilt, where folks may minimize their accomplishments, especially if family, siblings, or parents haven't done those things, right? So for me, I never would have thought about study abroad. Never, ever, ever, ever. There was no way I was going to ask my mom to send me out of the country when we were struggling to pay this bill. You know what I mean? So it just wasn't even a consideration. So there was just certain things I just did not think of doing while I was in school. But then it never goes away. It's just what happens now. So I'm very conscientious of not coming across as like thinking I'm better than myself, right? When I go back home. Literally my entire family's on the East Coast. They're either in North Carolina, DC, or New York, like one of those three places. And so I'm in California. And that's a whole other thing I could write about. That's some symbolic, that's signal, like, Hollywood, you made it. So I make sure that I'm just tea when I'm back home. I don't really talk about my accomplishments or anything like that. I'm not saying it's healthy, I'm not saying it's right, but that's one of the ways in which I have done that, right? Is not making sure I'm not bragging, you know what I mean? But to be fair, we also need to think about multiple definitions of success, because my cousins are very successful. They're just doing different things, right? I have the PhD, and they are doing other types of work.
Yeah, I think when I was talking to my students, I was telling them I'm lucky in the sense that I was very good at school, right? I just happened to do well in an academic environment. If I was an artist, which I am definitely not, I don't know if I would have, benefited as much. So there's some luck in, I was a good test taker, and I was sad when I had to miss school. So that's part of it too. I know that in your ethos, in all of the work that you do, you want to make sure we don't only or even at all think of first generation college students as lacking, as not having, as constantly saying, how can we fill in the gaps for them? And so I'm wondering if you have thought about your own story, like what strengths did you see as you were recalling these, events? What strengths did you see you could pull from that we might be able to think of, even in a broader sense, of first generation college students? Like what can we kind of think of when we see them that we might be able to draw from to help them get to their goals?
Sure. So that everyone's not sad, let's talk about the chapter about Prince. So I will say this in terms of the arc of the book. The beginning of the book is about, before I go to college, I would say all that my family did know. And then once I get to college, it's about what my family didn't know, right? There's a chapter early on where I go to a Prince concert at age 12. And this is early Prince, y'all. This is not Diamonds and Pearls Prince, okay? This is Prince on the bed, whatever. Dirty Mind, okay, some of you know, okay. And my English major friend will love this as well. I invite you to read this metaphorically. So my mother was 17 years old when she had me. My mom took me to this Prince concert, and it was so long ago, there weren't even assigned seats in this concert. So this was before Purple Rain. This was before Prince took off. It was literally a warehouse with some folding chairs. You get there, you could run to the front of the stage type of thing, and that's what I did. It was Prince, The Time, and Vanity 6. My goodness. I was 12 years old. And my mom let me run to the front, right? And then she stayed in the back, like on the risers, and she would say to me, stay where I can see you, right? And then it did get to a point, like by the time Prince got on stage, it was too full, right? So I just stayed in the back with her. There's a way in which you can interpret that and say, why would she do this? Why would this young mother, bring a child to a Prince concert, et cetera, right? That's one frame. It's a very deficit framing, especially when we think about Black families, that is dysfunctional. Let's turn that around. Let's think of what that meant for me. I got to see Prince, y'all, up close, like in a space like this. And if we see this as a metaphor for think of it as a metaphor for education, right? Educational journey. My mother had not been. My mom stayed in the back. My mom said, go where I can see you, and you go run to the front and then come back. And that's what we need to focus on when we talk about these families and these communities, the language that gets passed down, the things that are important to us that we need to hold on to. That's not talked enough about. It's always, they don't know what they don't know, and like lacking and all that type of stuff. I was filled with so much love and support, and school messed me up. Is the reality. And my mom, we need to think about pre-college experiences in a really different way. I'm arguing that was a pre-college experience. I'm arguing that gave me so much confidence, knowing that my mom was there. She didn't drop me off. My mom was there saying, hey, you go do that thing. And like I said, when I went off to college, I was like, well, yeah, I got this. Why all of a sudden don't I know things? That's really the failure of institutions, I would say.
So okay, I'm going to follow that up with my next question, but for right now, I'm wondering if you can talk about since we have especially some administrators in the room, any programming or events that were super successful in your first gen, service to students that you created. I have one that I remember, and I'm not sure if it's on the list, but I remember you telling me about, I believe it was at LMU, that you had students take pictures with their families when they were being dropped off, and that for first gen students in particular, that was really meaningful for them because you're kind of understanding them in the context. And I think you put all the pictures on a board, and so they can see the people that they are coming to college with, right? They're bringing them along. We bring along those people, and often right? A lot, especially for students who are the children of immigrants, right? They're feeling like they are paying their parents back for all of their sacrifice by going to college and being successful. So that moment came to mind. I remember you telling me about it years ago, but I'm wondering if that or something else is something that's like your favorite, was really hit where you wanted it to.
Yeah. You setting me up for the sequel. That was a good one. One of my favorite ones. I actually have two, but I mean, I'll tell you about this one. Goes back to the McNair Scholars Program. It's very common in McNair programs to have letters of recommendation for students. And ours was like, we had a pretty intense McNair Scholars Program at UCLA. It was reflective as a research one institution, so we wanted to reflect that. But it was also intimidating at the same time. So we got to a point where we did require 2 letters of rec, one academic and one that we called could be from someone in your support system. And it could literally be anyone. And we also said it can be in any language. Because the point was, it wasn't for us. It was for the student. And what we wanted the student to do was have a conversation with someone about what they were applying for, and then ask that person to say what it would mean to them. Is that making sense? So sometimes it was a parent, sometimes it was a spouse. It may have been, Darlene may have had her daughter, because Darlene was an adult learner at the time. And like I said, it could be in any language as well too, because it was, like, again, it wasn't something we read. It wasn't part of the evaluation. It wasn't. What we noticed after like the first 2 cohorts or so was that how important it was for the student who's going through this to have someone outside of the McNair program who had an inkling of what they were doing. And we really wanted them to see, we really wanted to move away from it being an individualistic endeavor to a more communal one. So that was like a way of signaling to do that, and also to show our value. We wanted to show our values. So that might be something I would talk about in the next book. Yeah.
And then this will be my last question, everybody. I feel like I'm stealing your time. And then we'll open it up. So if you have thoughts, you can start to formulate them now. So I know that the Facebook group, we were chatting about it, has shifted to some other moderators, but there was a time when you were posting every day. And I'm wondering what advice you have for those creating a community that's not tied to a campus, and like what you felt worked in that space that maybe you couldn't do right in a physical location on a college campus.
What worked in terms of building the community? Yeah. So this Facebook group of which she speaks started in 2015 with 25 people, 7,000 now. And I think of it, or I thought of it almost like a garden. So you plant the seeds, but you also have to like prune it, right? And you have to water it regularly. So the idea of posting regularly was really just about creating a cadence so people could anticipate. And it didn't have to be something just thought-provoking, like, oh, I saw this book, or have you all seen this movie, or here's a great program, or just a question of the day, or something like that. And I think that regularity is what led to a lot of engagement, I would say, and people knowing. I think what it also said is that you don't have to be a certain way, right? Just be your authentic self here. You talked about students feeling like students from all over just literally saying, I'm in line right now and I have to go to the bursar and I don't know what a bursar is. Can someone help? And someone would chime in. Like, that's crazy, right? It was a good model for thinking through, like, how do you, like, what's going through someone's mind. You should also ask yourself, why would a student feel more comfortable asking strangers in a Facebook group these questions? That's a good thing, right? So good thing to think about anyway. But it also kind of predated some of the like first-gen initiatives that are happening now. Now there's a Center for First Generation, First Gen Forward, and things like that. Nevada State is a First Gen Forward institution, I believe. Y'all First Gen Forward, aren't you? Yeah, there we go. This was before all that, though. Or it was like happening at the same time. It's happening at the same time. And even then, that's really about like often your campus, over time, it's become more of a consortium, but there were no consortiums. People were barely saying first gen in 2015. It was like, oh my God, is that okay? Are they going to feel bad about themselves? And now people have T-shirts and buttons and days and things like that. But we were before all that. So it also was about pride, I think, pride and community. Yeah.
All right. Now I'd love to open it up to our audience. Does this mic testing? Okay. So I am happy to share.
Hey! I can use this one? Okay.
Testing. Hi, LT.
Hey,
Thank you for coming back. It's so great to see you. Laura Nauman, a colleague of Chantel. First, to comment on your Prince story, as with my psychology hat on.
Uh-oh.
The way that you can explain that in future, in the biz, we like to say that your mom is your secure base. This is an attachment style paradigm that is used, that it's called the strange situation, and can the child venture away from the mom and just keep checking in? And if they can, they're securely attached. If not, if they worry when the mom leaves. So that is, you were saying that, and I was like...
Secure base.
Your mom is a secure base. It's John Bowlby is the original theorist.
Thank you.
It's related to attachment style. Kind of related to the parenting example, I know you shared your son and your daughter, and I have a 6.5-year-old. I'm not first gen, but I do resonate with kind of working class background, having the realization of like, oh, we were not middle class. Oh, that was an evict. That was like when I learned, I was like, oh, we were being evicted. I have recollections of like my dad driving the car with the mattress on top and just holding it with his hand, being in the passenger seat, moving in the middle of the night, and not just, that's what you do. We move every few months. So, and thinking about how I want to like help my daughter understand, obviously she has a different, that in just one generation, your son has already graduated from college. Like, what things about your experience, or how do you navigate that with your children to help them instill those important experiences that you had, while also recognizing they are not first gen anymore and that they have different privileges that you didn't have. So it's really a parenting question.
My kids are so privileged, you guys. Who gets to live at UCLA? You know what I mean? My daughter was 3, my son was 7, and for 5 years they lived on the UCLA campus. So they're in a very, very not elite, exclusive company, right? But I'm so proud of them. You know them very well. They are so well meant, like they are allies. They are real allies. And I think it comes from hanging out with Chantel. We were talking about this earlier. Like Zoe was 3, just like literally looking up to you, like being in the space, seeing what was going on, having open conversations with them. And so that they really became attuned. And I realize that doesn't have to happen, but I'm really grateful that they are not assholes, right? And in fact, if I could tell this story really quickly, when my son was in 6th grade, in middle school, there was an assignment. This is Los Angeles Unified. And the assignment, I kid you not, was for students to bring artifacts and documents of their immigration story. That was the quote. That was the actual assignment, to bring photographs and documents of your family's immigration story. Problem number 1, we don't have an immigration story, so you have conversations way sooner than you want to when you're Black about slavery. Then number 2, so I wasn't even aware of this assignment. I knew he was upset, and I was like, what's wrong, Jay? He was like, I forgot who it was. He's like, so-and-so is from Guatemala. He doesn't have pictures, Mom. What documents is he going to bring? Exactly. Do you feel that? You feel that? So I had a conversation with him. I don't shut him down. He's 11 years old. He felt that. And so what I did was say, well, what do you want to do about it? And I'm going to have your back. And he said, I'm going to write a letter to the teacher and say this is wrong. That's right, Jay, right? So you start that, you have those kind of conversations early so that they do become, you want them to be allies, you want them to be sensitive, you want them to fight for other people. That's the only way we're going to get out of the mess we're in right now is you got to have allies, people who are indirectly impacted by something to help those who are directly impacted by some things. That's the way I tend to think of it.
Does Jabari lead the First Gen and Juice?
He
stuff?
did, yeah. So there was a First Gen and Juice t-shirt. There's a First Gen and Juice Instagram that my son was like, Mom, that's such a great name. And he turned it into a business and sold some T-shirts. So like they're part of the movement, even though they don't share that particular identity. Make them part of the movement. Hey, friend.
Hey, I'm glad I attended this for multiple reasons. When you were talking about the photos, I was thinking about one, the art show I built around photos of my mother and grandmother, and then two, the subsequent workshops colleagues and I have designed in classroom and outside of classroom to get students to bring these stories. Yeah. So one, is it in your book?
Is what part?
Is that example of the photos in your book?
No.
Right, that's like sequel.
Sequel. Yeah.
And then the second is, what advice can we give to students when they bring their families to us about how to navigate the journey?
In what way? In what
grad school?
Uh-huh.
What insights do you have? Right, like as a McNair alum, you know.
Oh yeah.
There are things, right? But I'm also reflecting on more broadly in this how do you think this current moment differs from when we were McNair?
Yeah. Okay. But see, let me say this though, because sometimes we act like our family is crazy. Our family's asking some damn good questions. How you gonna pay for that? How much money? That's a fair question. That's a fair question. The fact of the matter is you can make more money as a manager at Trader Joe's, right? You can make 6 figures, right, and not have a college degree. So fair question, families. I think it's how we treat and respect the families, not shut it down. We also don't have to tell them every single thing either. You know what I'm saying? Like, how many times you change your major? Stop telling them how many times you change your major. You can change your major. You just don't need to report it every single time. So I think we sometimes get caught up in policies like FERPA, which can be anti-family. I understand the protection of it, but the fact of the matter is if your family has never seen it or experienced it before, we got to find a way to include them in the conversation in a way that they understand, you know. Ultimately not, and it's not true for every single family, I get that. But for the most part, the questions are coming from an authentic place of wanting to make sure that the child is okay and going to be okay. Now, when they haven't seen it before, you know, some things just you're like, well, why would you go on and pay more money, mijo, right, to go on to graduate school? Fair question. So we have to just talk about what are all the different options. And if we're having like cool people with PhDs, maybe invite the families to hear some of these mentors as well too, or to have some folks who've been through it in front of them as well too, and not put up these barriers. Also, not pathologize our families either, right? Again, we all have different family backgrounds. I'm not saying we don't, but for the most part, it is coming from a place of love and support and concern that you're going to be okay. I do know sometimes that can feel like putting a lid on students too. I recognize that, like, oh, well, you just accomplished enough. You got that degree. Why do you need more degrees? But we just gotta have open conversations about them and not act like it's not a fair question at the same time.
I think too we can help students and their families when we can, but help students understand that they're often navigating to cultural systems. Right, so they're coming often to us, if they're first gen, from an interdependent culture. And that can come from their racial identity, their immigrant identity, their class identity, and then they're being put in a system that is very independent, where they are expected to make their own decisions and make their own way. And sometimes that will feel like they're clashing, right? And so sometimes it does mean explaining to family, I'm in a different system where I am expected to do these things on my own, or like going to grad school is seen as prestigious or something like that, because I think that's what I see a lot with my students. And I think sometimes the students feel resentful because they're like, but you told me to go to college and now I'm doing the college thing and now you're mad at me for doing the college
100%.
thing. So I think it's sometimes just realizing we're operating under a different cultural assumption sometimes, and an explicit conversation is useful.
I mean, it doesn't really make sense, like when you're thinking about tenure track jobs, that you have to leave your home and go all these places. My grandmother said to me as I was applying for graduate school, Georgetown is right here. Why do you have to go to California? That is a fair and valid question. But like you said, I had to explain to her, there's a difference in why and all that, and not just be mad at her, right, or feel frustrated. And I do talk about that in the book too.
Do we have a question from either student? I know we have students.
Oh yeah, for sure.
Okay.
Hang on. Hey.
Hello. So I'm currently a senior in psychology and
Yay.
also a McNair scholar.
Newly admitted into graduate school.
Yes,
Yay.
thank you. As I've gone through my academic journey, I've realized that academia is something that I'm very passionate about and would continue to pursue post graduate school. As a McNair administrator, is there any experience with students that particularly stuck out to you that left a lasting mark on you outside of an educational context or outside of a institution like UCLA?
All of them. No, seriously. And I wasn't just the McNair director. Our office, like Chantel mentioned, had cohort-based programs for a number of different students. So I can't even pick one out. I mean, some of them, I can't pick one out. I'm going to pick one out. But one of them, another Monique, my goodness. One of them is my daughter's godmother. George was not a McNair scholar, but he's basically like my brother, right? When I say I have a brother, that's who I'm thinking of, someone who I met when he was 19 years old, right? So definitely formed really strong bonds with these students because, like Dr. Marshall, I get to see them grow up intellectually, right, and support them. Some of them do, many of them, most of them did go on for a doctorate. Some didn't, and they need to know that was okay. And they didn't let me down. They didn't let down Ronald McNair. They didn't let down Trio. There's a weight. There's a weight for that. But there's so many. There's so many. Absolutely.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm. You getting your steps in. Oh, perfect. There we go.
So we can talk about some Prince.
Hey, friend. Hey.
Hey. Oh, your Gen X sister.
That's
over here.
right.
I have a question. I'm Stephanie Coleman. I'm Vice
Hey,
President of
Stephanie.
Student Affairs, and I oversee our Trio space in this. So yes, Trio works fabulously. I'm not first gen, but I've always been drawn as that ally to first gen. And when I meet parents, I find that they appreciate the openness, answering their questions. Have you ever considered writing a book for the parents so they can better support and prepare their students for that college journey?
I have not, Stephanie. I'm not sure that's. I got like a queue of books I want to write. I'm not sure that might be your ministry. I do want to acknowledge the importance of that, and for all the students that I was thinking of, in some cases I did have bonds with their family members as well too. But yeah, I'm going to turn that one back on you to say, have you thought about writing that book? Because you said just how important that was. But yeah, I definitely wanted to acknowledge it. Probably not this lifetime, but I have a book that just came out on it is called First Gen and Juice, and it's on pop culture. It's on the representations of first gens in mass media and pop culture. So films like Blue Beetle, TV shows like Dawson's Creek and The Waltons. What's in the book? Riri Williams, Ironheart, Barbie as a first gen. J. Robert Oppenheimer, the person, was first gen to college. So that's a great STEM and first gen story, by the way. So his parents were wealthy, but not college educated. They sent him to Harvard. And he experienced many of the same things that our students experience today and wanting to go home. So that's the track I'm on right now. I'm doing a lot of stuff on pop culture.
So my question about that Prince concert, was this during controversy in 1999? Was that the...
Tour. She passed out. Look, y'all. My tickets were $12. $12, and I won. This is so 80s right now. I got to go because I won my mom tickets to see Shaka Khan from the radio. I had to be caller 14 or whatever it was. This is so dated.
We can start with the pamphlet for parents. Can we start there?
But I'm not doing it.
No.
Okay, I'm just being clear.
Us as an institution. Let's. You know
Now
what?
the students make this.
You know what? I'm still making up an assignment right now.
Yeah, there we go. There we go.
It.
Then y'all send it to me and I'll hype it up for you. Yeah.
And other questions? Oh, students. This should be video.
Vimeo? Oh, video. Absolutely. Hello.
Hello, my name is Pedro. So, why the reason to continue higher ed? Because, like, when I think of my family, half of my family doesn't go to post-secondary education because it's too expensive, or they look at financial benefits. And as I reflect, because I'm now in my 4th year, I actually, like as you mentioned, like I enjoy the space of education, and I've noticed that many times that's like an afterthought. So what was your reason to going to grad school and then getting a PhD?
Going to grad school, not going to college, going to grad school. The reason for going to grad school was because I learned about undergraduate research. And when that was, we were talking about this earlier, that was life-changing for me. And I was like, what? Because I was a very inquisitive person, and I had a lot of questions. And I was like, I can get paid to like answer my own questions, right? And then I learned about like going on to get a PhD. So for me, having been the first person in my family to go to college, a master's degree was like, oh my God, a master's degree. Like that was huge because no one had been to college. So a PhD just was not, just it was like, can you go on the moon? That's how it felt, right? That distant for me. But I'm gonna be honest with you. I saw the flyer for McNair. I'm a whisper. So I saw the flyer for McNair, and it said, "Are you interested in graduate school?" And I was like, "Well, I don't even know what that is." But I saw that it was a stipend. I was like, "Well, I need that money." So that's what pulled me in, was the stipend, and then I learned what research was. And the beauty of a program like McNair, it's not exclusive to McNair, is that you do it with other people who come from similar backgrounds. So then I was forming community. It was like X-Men. And I was like, oh, okay. So really like these mutant nerds kind of thing. And that gave me, it was a false representation of graduate school, but that's what I thought graduate school was going to be like. So that's the thing that kept me going, is that I had these questions I wanted to answer, and graduate school or PhD I thought would be the thing that would allow me to do that. I come from a military family background. I've come from people who work in the federal government, so it was very, very different kind of lifestyle that suddenly I was thinking about, that no one in my family could support me on. Not at all. So the community was really important.
I'm going to take over questions because I'm going to take over questions because I want to make sure we talk about how you wrote a book.
Oh, yes. Okay, yes.
I'd love to just, quickly, especially since we learned this will be recorded, and so we can always share it. And I know some folks want to know the process of writing a book. My first question is simply, where do you find the time to write a book?
I didn't say, so this is a self-published book, so it's not a trade press, and we could talk more about that. I literally got up 30 minutes earlier and wrote for 30 minutes a day to start. You just have to start. And I think if you sit down and think, I am going to write a book this weekend, you will not write that book, most likely. But if you say to yourself, I am going to write for 30 minutes a day, that's like, or something that's achievable, that's where it comes in, especially those who are runners or athletes can probably relate to that. So I was in a different role than I'm in now, but I just sat down at my computer for 30 minutes. Lo and behold, when you do that and you don't edit, if you just write, you just sit your ass down and write, you start to get pages. And I also had an editor, a developmental editor who held me accountable, but I did that. And then after a while, it got to a point where I was like, oh, I need to be writing, right? But I needed to be ready in order to do that. I don't know that I could have written it 5 years ago, or like Stephanie trying to make me write a book right now, and I'm like, I'm not even thinking about a book, but I was ready to do that one.
And if you could talk a little bit about self-publishing versus the more traditional publishing route, and how you ended up choosing
Are
this
any of
route.
you familiar with the book First Gen by Alejandra Campoverde by any chance? A really popular memoir. She's now a friend of mine, but as she was writing, her book was done before, as I was writing my book, and she went a traditional publishing. So by traditional, we mean that the pub, let's say Simon and Schuster covers everything, right? They pay for the editing, the cover. You aren't coming out of pocket for anything. They cover it. But think of it like the music industry. So the more that they put into it, the less your royalties are, right? Is that making sense, right? So when you self-publish, I was responsible for the editing. I'm responsible for the design, the layout, and all that type of thing. And so I knew that I got another book coming out that's a traditional press. But for this story, I really wanted to have as much creative control as possible, because I really wanted it to reflect me. I dare say, I don't think I would have had this cover, you guys, if it was Simon and Schuster. No, they give you like a template or whatever. Or you know what it would probably been? That picture of me, like the kindergarten one. It would have been that one, because that's like how memoirs look right now. But damn, this is a nice one, right? My mom made this cover, so Mom Dukes designed this cover. And so for this book, I really wanted that. I really wanted to just be playful. I did have to pay for the editing, right? But I also get way more money on the back end. So I think it's a matter of, just like one could go to a community college, one could go to a four-year school, one could go to a public school, a private school, is really, you need to be informed about what they offer you. And I think most people just assume you have to go like the private route, which is really difficult, especially a memoir. A memoir is really hard right now. Like it's back. Celebrity memoirs, or you and I were talking earlier about memoirs that are also tied to a much bigger like social movement or time or something like that. But I was focused. Like when I sat down to write it, I really knew what I wanted.
Yeah. Run over.
My friend Monique.
I had a quick question of where we can buy your book. Check it out. I have a Kindle. I'd love to have it on my Kindle.
Yes, all those things. It's if you could go to smartgirlbook.com, and it shows you all the different places. It is available as an ebook. It is available as a print book. I have an audio book where it's me reading as well too. So there's a number of different ways. I even have a podcast. Oh, I could bring the slide back up. I even have a podcast. If you like really want to get nerdy, like deep dives, then you might enjoy the podcast, which is on. It's the next slide, Chantel. Then that Spotify. I mean that podcast is available in a number of different ways. So these are all the ways in which you can find me on Instagram, LinkedIn. First Gin and Juice is not my personal account. That's the account that has all like the media, TV stuff, and I'm on Blue Sky as well too. So yeah, I definitely will write another book, but it'll be a continuation of the story, and I'll tell more about the programs. Chantel will be in
I'll
it.
be in it.
She will be named. I was like, there's this girl. Thank you so much.
Because we were chatting before this, and it's because I changed your life.
You changed my life.
Yes.
You did.
We
You want me
can-
to tell that story?
Go ahead.
Yeah, I mean, well, it really was significant in the sense that, as you described, that dusty office that we had, and it was a really small room, and we were expanding our offerings beyond McNair, and Chantel said to me, "You're so funny. You were just so casual about stuff." But Chantel said to me, "A goldfish can only grow as big as its bowl, right?
We need a bigger bowl.
And we need a bigger bowl." And that led us to really push to expand the physical space, because space matters, right? And this was a whole other thing I could talk about. But students obviously pick up on those things. You could ask a student, it's a really good exercise, ask a student what's the most important building on campus, or ask them what's the least important one, and they will tell you, because what offerings are there. And we should listen to that, but we needed to signal that that what we were doing was really important, and we needed to get out of that small closet space. So thank you for that. Yeah.
Can't wait to see it in writing.
See your name in the book.
So yes, these are ways to connect. I also would like to share that I read the book on an app called Ever which is a subscription model that is both ebooks and audiobooks. So that is how I read it.
You do not
20
have
minutes
to
a
go
day.
to Amazon.
No.
If you would like to bypass
why
a billionaire, by all means, just go to smartgirlbook.com.
Yes, and you can order, and it's printed for you when you order it. Well, that is our time. I just want to thank you sincerely from the bottom of my heart for coming, for sharing, for being, for continuing this amazing work. I am continuously amazed at your laser focus on first gen experiences and how we can evolve and innovate how we serve those students. It is not an answer that you finish. It is a continuous process. And if you go to that website as well, Smart Girl Book, you will get links to the podcast, which is great. And you get to meet a few people
That I talked about in the book.
They're talked about in the book. And there's also a Spotify playlist that includes the music that is mentioned in the book.
Including Prince.
Including Prince. So thank you again for being here
Yeah, thank you all
and
so
being a part
much.
of the conversation.
Yeah, I
Thank
appreciate
you.
it. Thank you so much for having me. We need to take a picture.
We do. There's plenty of snacks in the back. We can mingle for a little bit, and we'll wrap up.